Imagine this. In the early 1900s, if you were shipping goods from New York to San Francisco, you'd have to take a treacherous 13,000-kilometer detour around the southern tip of South America. This journey added weeks to travel time, put crews at risk, and dramatically increased costs. But in 1914, something extraordinary happened that changed everything. The Panama Canal. This 82-kilometer marvel didn't just shorten the route, it revolutionized global trade, reshaping economies and industries worldwide. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating story of the Panama Canal, from its challenging construction, its massive impact on global trade, to the expansions that have kept it essential even today. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the video, Early Visions and the Global Need for a Canal. Let's take a step back to the 19th century. Back then, the idea of a canal cutting through the narrow Isthmus of Panama was the dream of empires. A waterway here could allow ships to avoid the grueling trip around Cape Horn, save countless days at sea, and protect sailors from perilous weather conditions. This wasn't just a convenience, it was an economic necessity. Global trade was growing, and new maritime routes were essential to fuel the booming global economy. Explorers, traders, and governments recognized that whoever controlled a canal across Central America would dominate world trade. However, building a canal in the dense, mountainous jungles of Panama, with its unpredictable rainfall and tropical diseases, seemed impossible. The US, European countries, and even Spain had tried to survey the land, but the thought of actually building a canal felt like an engineering and logistical nightmare. That is, until the late 1800s, when a determined French engineer named Ferdinand de Lesseps decided to turn this dream into a reality. The French attempt and the challenges faced. In 1881, Ferdinand de Lesseps, the same engineer who had successfully built the Suez Canal in Egypt, embarked on an ambitious mission to construct the Panama Canal. His previous achievement with the Suez Canal, which connected the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, had been a major engineering success and a critical trade link between Europe and Asia. But Panama was no Egypt. While the Suez Canal was built through flat desert terrain, Panama's landscape was rugged, with steep mountains, thick jungles, and tropical downpours that caused severe flooding. But the geography wasn't the only obstacle. Panama was also a breeding ground for diseases like malaria and yellow fever, both transmitted by mosquitoes. At the time, medical science didn't yet understand how these diseases spread. Workers, many of whom were brought in from the Caribbean, died by the thousands. Within just a few years, nearly 22,000 workers had lost their lives, mainly due to disease and hazardous working conditions. By 1889, the project had bankrupted investors and cost countless lives. The French eventually abandoned the project, leaving behind half-finished structures and a failed dream. But the vision of a canal was far from over. The American takeover and revolutionary new approach. In 1904, the United States stepped in. By this time, the strategic and economic value of a canal in Panama was too significant to ignore, and President Theodore Roosevelt was determined to make it happen. He saw the Panama Canal as a symbol of American ambition and power. After negotiating with Colombia, and later Panama after its independence, the U.S. took over the canal zone, buying up French assets, equipment, and taking over their unfinished construction sites. How the canal operates. Now let's take a closer look at how the Panama Canal actually works. The canal operates on a system of locks that function like water elevators, raising and lowering ships as they cross from one ocean to the other. Here's how it works step by step. A ship entering the canal from the Atlantic side is first directed into the Gatun locks. These locks gradually raise the ship 26 meters, or about 85 feet, to the level of Gatun Lake. Once elevated, the ship sails through Gatun Lake, a man-made lake that provides a natural path for ships to cross Panama's rugged terrain. After crossing Gatun Lake, the ship enters the Gaillard Cut, a narrow channel carved through the mountains. This is the canal's most challenging section, as it was dug through solid rock and has to be constantly dredged to prevent landslides. Once through the Gaillard Cut, the ship reaches the Pacific side locks, the Pedro Miguel and Miraflores locks, which lower it back down to sea level. The entire journey takes about 8 to 10 hours, a fraction of the time it would take to sail around South America. Today, canal operations are a well-coordinated dance of ships, tugboats, and lock systems, with each ship moving in carefully timed sequences to minimize wait times and make the best use of water. The canal has become an essential route for ships of all kinds, transporting everything from electronics and fuel to grain and manufactured goods. The canal's massive impact on global trade. The completion of the Panama Canal in 1914 revolutionized global trade almost overnight. By creating a shortcut between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, the canal allowed for shorter shipping routes, reduced travel times, and slashed transport costs. Goods could now move swiftly between Asia and Europe, or from the U.S. East Coast to the West Coast, transforming the logistics of international commerce. The canal's influence didn't just stop with convenience. It had a powerful impact on economic growth. With the canal's new route, port cities like New York, San Francisco, and even Houston saw massive growth as they became crucial stops on major trade routes. Today, the Panama Canal handles about 5% of all global maritime trade. Millions of tons of cargo move through it annually, and it's a key transit point for goods like oil, agricultural products, electronics, and clothing. The Panama Canal doesn't just benefit Panama, it's an artery for global trade, affecting markets and industries across continents. The expansion project and the new Panamax. As trade and shipping evolved, it became clear that the canal needed an upgrade. By the early 21st century, the canal's original locks couldn't handle the size of many modern ships, especially massive tankers and container ships that had become standard. These post-Panamax ships were simply too large for the original canal. So in 2007, Panama embarked on a monumental expansion project. The goal was to add a third set of locks, large enough to accommodate these newer, bigger vessels. This expansion, completed in 2016, was an engineering feat in itself. The new locks were 60% wider and 40% longer, designed to handle ships that could carry nearly 3 times the cargo. This expansion doubled the canal's capacity and allowed Panama to stay competitive as a major transit point in global trade. With the ability to handle larger vessels, known as new Panamax ships, the canal could attract even more trade, increasing Panama's revenue and ensuring its continued relevance in international shipping. Environmental challenges and future adaptations. While the Panama Canal remains a vital trade route, it faces significant environmental challenges, especially around water usage. The canal's lock system requires an enormous amount of water, about 52 million gallons for each ship passing through. This water comes from rainfall, primarily collected in Gatun Lake and surrounding reservoirs. But recent climate changes have led to unpredictable rainfall patterns, causing occasional droughts and concerns about water scarcity. To ensure the canal's future, Panama is exploring new water management strategies, including additional reservoirs and innovative lock designs that use less water per operation. Additionally, with the world increasingly focused on reducing carbon emissions, there's a push for the canal to implement greener technologies. The goal is to make the canal more sustainable, not only for environmental reasons, but to secure its role in global trade as climate impacts intensify. The Panama Canal Authority is also studying the potential impact of climate-related sea level rise and weather extremes to ensure the canal can continue operating smoothly in the decades to come. The Panama Canal is more than an engineering marvel. It's a symbol of human ambition, resilience, and ingenuity. From its complex construction that claimed thousands of lives, to its impact on world economies and its recent expansions, the canal continues to be one of the world's most essential trade routes. But as we look to the future, new challenges loom. So here's something to ponder. In a world of shifting climate patterns, evolving trade demands, and advancing technology, how will critical infrastructure like the Panama Canal need to adapt? And could new innovations, like autonomous shipping or alternative routes, someday challenge the canal's dominance?